Today we're going to visit all the interesting places on the Imandra map. We have quite a few locations to discover, so let's jump right into it. First, we're going to start with the everything for the pictogram task, and we'll leave the garage, head straight out through the fence, and down to the ice. We have 4 measurement zones left to discover. We did already visit a couple of them previously, and we're taking the Hummer out to try to put some miles on it. Once we reach the ice, we'll just get over these rocks here, and we'll have to get to the other side of the river. The Hummer doesn't really have any issue driving over the breakable ice. It's pretty light, and with these big mud tires, it kind of just floats over the top of them, so there's not too much concern. We'll get the first one discovered, and the second one is going to be around the bend following the shoreline. There are some large rocks over here. The scouts tend to bounce over them a little easier than some of the bigger trucks that get hung up on them. But you do got to be careful because there's nothing to winch to out here. So now that we've rolled, we're going to have to bring out another truck. We'll grab the Tataran because it's nice and sturdy and it doesn't have any issue getting through this snow. You may have already realized that the Tataran does kind of suck over these big rocks though. It can get hung up and stuck on them. You do also have to be careful where you drive across the breakable ice when you're running this vehicle because it's pretty heavy. It does have a high mud rating on the tires of 8.0, but the tires are not very tall and it can get stuck out there pretty easily. We'll climb up to the top of these rocks and we'll use the Tataran as a winch point. Get our Hummer flipped back over. We can jump into it and we'll just winch onto the Tataran as an anchor. Okay, let's leave that there. We'll continue on down the shoreline. Just navigating some of these bigger rocks. I'm going to stay closer to the edge. Alternatively, you can drive up into the snow, but it's kind of deep and it takes a little longer to get through. Alright, let's get up here and grab the second one. The third one is just around the bend again. Shouldn't have any issue getting over there. Might be playing it a little bit risky, being this close to the edge. Just be careful. And we're back on solid ground. Let's get this one. The fourth and final one is up at the top in the middle of the island. There's a few different ways you can get up there. I'm going to try to go through the rocks here and just cruise up through the trees. But I am having some issues getting over this rock. The mud tires really do suck when it comes to rock navigation. They just don't have a good enough off-road rating. Now the default mud tires from the base game have a much higher off-road rating, and they actually do perform very well on the rocks, but not very good in the mud. The mud is like 1.6 on them. It's pretty low. So I am using the JAT tires. The mud rating is considerably better. So we'll just go further down the shoreline and get up through the trees there. The snow here is pretty deep. It does take a while to get through. I do have to run in low with diff lock engaged to get through this. Especially up here at the top, when you get closer to the road, the snow gets very deep and sticky. But we made it. We're almost to the church now. Pretty cool landmark over here. Although I don't know who's going to make the trip out here to attend that church. There is an upgrade here. This is the active suspension for the Warthog, which is pretty good. It's kind of nice to have, so you can lower it. And we'll get the everything for the pictogram task complete. And now from here, we're going to run back down to this road, but instead of going back through that deep snow, we're just going to go over the rock cliff. The ground here is slippery. It's kind of covered in ice, so you do have to be careful going down. There are some trees out here, but they're a little bit hard to reach. So you want to make sure that you're taking it easy going over these rocks. And then put some preemptive winches out, like before you need them, just to make sure that you don't end up rolling down the hill. We'll head back down to the shoreline where we can get back on the solid ice. And then we're going to head over to the Watchtower that's on the other side. If you're not concerned about getting the Watchtower, totally understand that, but I'm going to try to go for full discovery of the region. Let's grab some fuel out of the Tataran here. and we'll make our way back across these big boulders. And there's a road on the other side of the lake here. Okay, now that we're back to it, we'll stick to the left. If you go up to the right there, that's going to take you to one of the next contracts that we need to complete. But we're not going that way with this truck because it's pretty horrendous. I don't want to make this more miserable than it needs to be. On that note, the Hummer might not have been the best choice for this. I do like to use the Hummer in these snow regions because it performs pretty decent in the snow compared to some of the lighter Scouts, but the Yar 87 would have probably done a lot better job. We're gonna cut right through the trees here, and the road up to the Watchtower is just ahead. You will find yourself doing a lot of winching through here. You could probably take one of the bigger trucks up here and it would do a better job of driving through the snow, but there are a lot of huge boulders and they do like to tip you over. There isn't a whole lot to winch to once you get further up in here. I know many times I've brought the bigger trucks up here to discover this Watchtower and been stuck on my side, so I'm going to use a smaller Scout because they tend to bounce over these rocks better without getting stuck on them. Just up ahead to the right is the Watchtower. Take it real easy through this spot. If you need to, back up and take a different route. We'll get this Watchtower discovered, and then immediately following that, we're going to work on the forecast for tomorrow task, where we have one weather data capture zone remaining to discover. So let's get a view of the region, and you can see that's the substation down there that we've been working at recently. Now that final weather data capture zone is on the other side of the valley. We'll need to go down across the lake and back up the other side. So let's head back out of here the way that we just came. And instead of following the road all the way back down, we're going to cut through the trees over towards the lake. Like I said, these rocks are definitely hard to navigate. Just be extra careful going through here. It can get very tippy. That final data capture zone is a hard one to reach because the road that leads up into it is one of the worst roads on this map, as far as being deep snow, deep mud, and also very off camber. We'll make it up there though. The Hummer might take a while to get through this stuff, but it will get there. Let's cut through the trees. You can see the waypoint is just up ahead. Now we made it back to the lake. You can drive through it, but it's deep and muddy, so I'm just gonna follow the shoreline. And then there's a road coming out of the other side. This road will take you through that canyon straight ahead and down to where we found the floating change house, that cabin that was out in the water we had to rescue. That's a really bad road to take. I would avoid it at all costs. But we're gonna cut up on this other road, and this is what I was talking about where it gets very off camber. If you bring some of the bigger trucks through here, you'll struggle to stay upright, for sure. It's definitely good to have an autonomous winch in this area. And at the top, you can see there's another road that cuts off to the left. This is the one we're taking. The final zone is just ahead. And we made it. We'll get this one discovered. Forecast for tomorrow is now complete. Let's just leave the Hummer here. It's time to jump into a more capable vehicle. So we'll jump back into the Tataran and we'll go discover the rest of the locations on this map. This should make it a little bit easier for us. We have some pretty extreme roads to navigate. So the first thing we'll do is follow the direction that we went with the Hummer previously, across these rocks. And then when we get to the other side of the river, we're gonna take the path that we avoided with the Hummer. I'm gonna use the rock bridge across so I don't get stuck in the ice. And now you see that path is straight ahead here. There are a lot of breakable trees through this area. Don't be afraid to run them over. They're gonna be the smaller ones. And then we'll have to navigate through this kind of a minefield of rocks and rock shards sticking out. And we're gonna go right up the hill. Can be a little tricky going up through here, but I think we'll be able to make it with this truck. Just try not to get high centered. And now we've reached one of the waypoints for the Places of Military Glory contract, where we need to discover the different batteries around the map. We did find one with the Taiga when we were opening the garage, and this is another one. It's a little tricky running through here. There is this one section of ice, and the Tataran does not do well on the ice, but for some reason it doesn't seem to be as slippery as other places. Well, now that we have that one discovered, we can continue down the hill, and we're going to cut through the trees and go visit the stone labyrinth that's at the bottom. There's a lot of different places for us to discover on this map. As I said in the first episode, Kola Peninsula is kind of a discovery and exploration based region, and this is usually where people tend to get overwhelmed and a bit frustrated because of all the different places you have to go. We're trying to do kind of all the different discovery tasks and contracts at the same time by making the best path around the map to get them all in one shot. And it's going to cut down a lot on your travel time versus doing them all separately. You'll end up having to make the same trips many times to get everything discovered. Once we get through the rocks, we'll just cut down the hill here through these trees, and there's this large opening at the bottom. I can't count how many times I've hit one of these rocks and flipped over when I was in some of the bigger trucks that were less stable, and then you just get stuck out here. There's nothing to winch to, even if you have an autonomous winch. So this truck is probably the best choice for that. Leaving there, we'll cut through these trees. We're going to stay uphill as far as possible, as long as possible, and then cross the ice road, and we'll be back down to the opposite shoreline. So we'll head back down to the shoreline, which usually seems to be the safest place to travel. And you can see one of the batteries up ahead. This thing does not like to turn at all when you're bouncing over rocks. Now that we have that one complete, we'll jump to the old lighthouse task, which is just around the corner. You can see it over there on top of the hill. We'll make a quick stop by there on our way to the other side of the map. So let's head back down to the shoreline, and I'll show you a back way to get in there that makes it a little bit easier and cut some time off. It's kind of a spiral that leads up to that lighthouse, and we can avoid a lot of it by going in through the back here. So we'll just go right through these rocks. There's a pretty big crack here that we can drive through. It's kind of difficult, but we'll make it through. And then hang a right, and we'll just go up the last part of the spiral here. This final section can be a bit tricky just because of how many boulders there are here. Tend to bounce around over the top of all of them, and it's hard to get through here. But if you can at least make it to here, there's a tree right there to winch to if you need it. Just a little bit further, and we made it. Old lighthouse is now complete. This would be a great place to recover from, but we have a couple more stops on our journey. So let's activate a keepsake, and we'll get turned around, and now we gotta head back out of here. So we'll take the zigzag back down the hill, and then when you get to the bottom, you can drive up through this crack to get back out of here. It is the best way. But the Tataran is just not having it. I guess it's too wide. The Action does a better job of getting out of there, but it tends to tip over a lot on these boulders. So you kind of have to choose your poison. I guess we're taking the long way out. We have a lot of big boulders that we need to drive across now to get out of here, and this is definitely the harder way. But if we just take our time and be patient, choose the path wisely, we should be able to get out. As you can see, the spiral goes around. We're going to try to cut down to the shoreline towards the bottom here so that we can avoid most of this bad stuff. This is a treacherous route for sure. Okay, let's cut down to the ice. It should be a lot easier driving out if we take this path. So we'll hang a left, and I think we've got it pretty much in the bag from here. Just do your best to keep momentum up so you don't get stuck on anything. Now that we're down to the bottom, we can cruise for a little ways. We're heading back over to the ice road that we've been doing our long logs on, and that road is definitely too slippery for this truck. So we're going to want to stay on the rocks. Even though they're not a great alternative, they're going to be better than trying to slide sideways down that road the whole way. It's a bad road, but we're almost through it now. You can see the ship is just up ahead. There is a large section of breakable ice here to the left, so don't drive through that. Let's go past it, and then we'll follow the edge around, driving on the shards. And there we go. Now that we have that one complete, we can move back to the Places of Military Glory contract, and we'll jump in the Warthog to discover the Umba battery. As you remembered previously, we did repair the gearbox on the Warthog so that we could use it for this task. Let's grab a little bit of fuel. I don't know if 40 liters is quite going to cut it. We're not going to get a full tank, just enough to make sure that we make it there. It's a one-way trip, so we don't have to have too much. Let's leave the airport. There's a road out here we can drive down. We're going to take a left and run up the hill. The Warthog does a pretty good job even with these little highway tires, and we'll cut off on this back road. We're going to go up around the tree line. The road does go to the right, but it's horrible and we won't make it through there. But if we go around the tree line, we can get up on the top of these rocks and we can just run around to the left to get back down to the shore. Once you reach the bottom, it's pretty easy after that. This little truck does a good job, even through the deep snow. Okay, we made it. Let's hit the shoreline. We're going to cruise from here. You can see the Umba battery is just up ahead. And once we reach this, we'll have this contract complete. And then as a victory celebration, we knew this was a one-way trip. I like to drive up ahead and just cruise off the dock into the lake. I mean, why else would they put it here, right? Okay, let's leave the Warthog here. We're going to jump back into the Tataran, and let's go discover that watchtower that's at the top of the hill. There's a couple different ways we can reach that watchtower. One of them is going to require chain tires because of the steep icy hills that we need to climb. And the other way is going to require mud tires, which is what we have on this. So that's the path we're going to take. We need to cross the rock bridge down here at the bottom. Please take your time and be very careful through here. This truck does not turn very well, and it would not take a whole lot to bounce off into the lake. But we made it. You can see that path that goes around and up through the trees. That's the road we're taking. It's really deep mud, so make sure you have a capable vehicle if you choose to go that way. It can be difficult to see where the road is at. Sometimes panning out makes it a little bit easier. And now we'll take this twisty, turny road up through the trees and through the mud. There's some pretty cool things to see up in here as well. Like this river that's flowing through the rocks. That's kind of neat. Something you wouldn't normally see if you weren't traveling around out here to check it out. Alright, now if we were taking the ice hill path up, it would be coming up from the left there. So we'll turn right, and the watchtower is just up here. This should be the final watchtower on the map. You can see the middle island out there. Nice look. We're going to go back to Lake Cove. We have an upgrade that we needed to discover. So we'll jump into the Scout 800. Let's head back out of here. We'll go get that final upgrade. A lot of you have probably discovered it already. I guess I overlooked it previously, but we will need it to continue on. And as you remember, the snow through here is deep, and it's going to take a little while to get through. The Scout 800 won't have any issue getting through it. It's just time consuming. A little bit bouncy. We'll get there though. Almost to the bottom. Alright, we made it. Let's cross the ice here. This is where we brought the loaf through, and it took some engine damage. We're going to cruise up, get back on the road, make our archway around the sketchy pole. You all will forever remember that pole as the sketchy pole. And then we can cruise up the road. Pretty nice little trip here. It's always nice to get some speed going. Let's hang a left. We're going to run up through the rocks. The upgrade is at the top of the hill. This path is a tricky one, for sure. These tires are definitely not the best choice for this. It's slippery, kind of icy rock, and the only way to really get up there is to get some momentum. I'll cut up to the end where you can see where the trip was unsuccessful. The Scout got stuck on its side. Probably shouldn't have even tried it with this. So we'll jump back into the old faithful Tataran that we left sitting over on the road by the factory, and we'll come up from the other side. I'll show you an alternative way to get up there. So let's head down to the bottom. We're going to go by the pit stop camp. Now the pit stop task is the only remaining thing we have left to do on this map, and the only reason I haven't completed it yet is because I still have one trip of long logs that I need to haul into Imandra. Now I know a lot of you have already brought the long logs in by now, and if that's the case, then feel free to turn that thing in so you don't have to come back by here again. I ended up splitting the trips up to kind of make it a little less painful so I wouldn't have to do 3 in a row. So that's why I still have one remaining. We'll cut up through the trees here. There's kind of an open path. You'll have to stay to the left and hug this big rock ridge. You get right up through here, and the upgrade is up at the top. This upgrade is the tuned suspension for the Ford F750. This is what I prefer to use because it allows you to use the tallest 45-inch tires, and that's also why I haven't even taken that truck out yet. So let's jump into it, we'll recover it, and we're going to move it over to Imandra. Time to customize. Let's put in that big engine, and the tuned custom suspension. We'll sell off the rest of them. I'm going with the 45-inch UOD2 tires. Personally my favorite for this truck. I'm definitely gonna install an autonomous winch and a tall snorkel. We'll get the all-wheel drive upgrade installed. Now I'm gonna remove the pickup bed and run it without anything just for this task because we're gonna do some rock climbing and I want the truck to have the least amount of stuff to get hung up on as possible, and we'll get some new rims. Let's run it. So we're going to work on the engine troubles task. We need to climb up to the top of the hill outside the garage and locate the YAR 87. Let's grab this fuel trailer. We're going to get it pulled out by the road so we don't have to come in here each time to use it or go through the garage to refuel. Also, they kind of left it parked in a place where it's right in the way. So you can see the icon up there on top of the hill. We're going to run up there. We'll get our recovery lights activated on the roof. Definitely too muddy to drive through that. We'll have to go around it. Now you can see all the rocks up ahead that we need to climb. And I will say this, without having the truck bed on here, the back end is a lot lighter, and that translates into more power for the vehicle, but also more wheel spin because of the lack of weight. So you will notice that it struggles a little bit more through the deeper snow than if you had left the truck bed add-on installed. But it bounces over these rocks real nice, and that's the goal for this task. Most likely you'll need to use your winch to get up through here, but try to stay up to the left. It's a little bit better over here. All of that cliff side, and the road is just up at the top. Okay, there's the YAR 87. We're gonna need to put a little bit of fuel in it so it can drive itself. And just like before, we'll repair the gearbox, and I'll just put the rest of the repair points in the engine. If you remember, we stole the fuel out of this with the Taiga, which was definitely beneficial at the time. It does not need a full tank to get down the hill, and it does not need fuel to be turned in. But since we're just going back down to the garage with it, it's a short trip. It's just a difficult one because we have to pull it across the top of all these rocks. So I managed to get the front of the Ford stuck. This is one of the reasons why I didn't use a different bumper. I just kept the default bumper because it has the most ground clearance underneath it. But even with the default bumper, I still got stuck on that rock. So just use your winch to get yourself over this stuff. Now we've got the YAR stuck. We need to get it moved to the side. There we go. Let's get out of here. We're almost through it, but we still have a couple obstacles left in the way here. We got stuck on another rock. We'll pull ourselves up over the top and then grab onto it. Make sure you grab onto the side that's closest to the tree you want it to go around. We'll get out the bottom here, go through some of this deep snow. And then we just need to pull it in and around through the backside of the garage parking lot and deliver to the repair shop. Okay, now that that's complete, stage 2 is to haul in one vehicle spare part. So let's recover that Warthog back to the garage. We're gonna get it customized. I'm going with the biggest engine, and I do like the high range gearbox. I'm thinking between raised and active. I'm going with the raised. We'll install the JAT OMD3 off-road tires because they have the duals in the rear. We'll install the advanced medium winch. Get the tallest snorkel. The tallest one doesn't work with the roof rack, but we're not installing the roof rack, so. I do like to take the spotlights off when I'm in the snow regions because it gets snow blindness pretty bad. And they are bright. But I'm going to run this thing as minimalist as possible to keep it stable. The roof rack on this truck adds a ton of weight to the top of the vehicle, and it makes it flip over a lot. So leave it off, if possible. As you can see, the truck is quite capable. It cruises. With the most recent game update, they have given us the autonomous winch for this truck, although at the time of this recording, it was not available. Otherwise, I would have installed that. I like to go around the tree that's laying across the road, so I don't have to try to go over the top of it. It's a bad one. And then also this ditch straight ahead here between the rocks is really deep mud, so I like to go around that as well. We'll just go up over these rocks here. Now I did turn left a little early. If you stay to the right a bit further and drive through those trees, it's easier to get through here. The snow is a bit deep where I'm driving right now, although you can get through it, it just takes time. And there is a pretty deep ditch right here. You got to be careful when you hit it so it doesn't flip you over. Let's run over to the warehouse and we'll get that vehicle spare part. As you can see, we do still have the Dan sitting here from the second load of long logs that I hauled in. We'll get that loaded up and let's turn around and head back out of here. Now, when you're going past the trailer store here, be careful because that ditch right there, I hit it a little bit too hard. Thankfully, we left the Dan sitting here. We'll use the Dan to rescue ourselves. But when you go over that ditch, just go a little bit slower. Actually, you can go around it to the left and you'll be able to get through it a lot easier. But we can sell off this log trailer quick. Get rid of that and we'll get that truck rescued. We'll just get the Dan parked out of the way, and then we'll jump back into the Warthog. I'm just going to remove that cargo and go back and reload, since I don't have a crane in the area. So we'll run back over to the warehouse, we'll get loaded up, and we'll head back. Hopefully the second time we don't have issues. We're back to the ditch. Let's take it easy this time. We'll get through this deep snow and back up to the rocks. When you go over these rocks, just take it real slow because they do bounce you around a lot and they tend to be a bit slippery. Avoid the tree in the road, go around to the right. Nice open field back here. The snow is hard packed and easy to drive on. And then when you get back to the road, you can cruise, but just be careful going over these rocks. Get another donkey kick there. This truck is kind of infamous for bouncing like that. Let's stay to the right through here. It's a little bit easier to drive on as long as you can keep it straight. I just try to avoid the mud when possible. And we're back. Let's get this delivered. We'll be done with this task. Okay, engine troubles is complete. Now we need to jump back to the garage. We're going to grab another truck, the ANK. We haven't used it yet in this region. I'm going to install the Tag Balloon tires because we're going to be running down that really deep, nasty, muddy road that's back by the substation. So we're going to work on the magnitude of 5 task where we need to haul 2 fuel to the landslide that's back there by the lake. We can cruise up the road. This truck is eating it up. Back to the warehouse, we'll get loaded up again with 2 fuel. These tires do not perform that good in the snow. They don't really have the traction that they need. I would advise off-road tires for anything else, but since we're going through that deep muddy section, I'm going to install them just for that one part of the trip. You basically just need to think about the route you're going to take and decide what you think is going to be the worst section of it and the highest priority for your tire choice. For me, I can get through the rest of this stuff, even though it might take some time. I can get through it without issue, these tires, but that deep mud, I definitely want some flotation. We made it. We'll get loaded up, 2 fuel. Now that we have some weight in the box, that should help us with traction in the snowy areas. Let's head back out of here. We're going to be real careful when we go across that dip this time. Don't want a repeat of what we just did with the Warthog. Inch our way down through the snow, and then just as before, take it real slow and cautious when you're driving across the rocks. We'll use our alternative route to get around the bad tree. That tree is horrible. There's absolutely no easy way to get over it. And then just be careful. These rocks will get you. As you can see, it's not that bad getting to the warehouse if you just take the right path. Let's stop here and get refueled, and then we'll continue on straight ahead. The road is a little bit off camber here, just outside of the garage, so be careful that you don't flip. But once you get through that part, you can usually just kick it down and cruise through the rest. I try to stay to the right, going by these trees, up on this little section of snow, because it's harder packed there. And now the rest of this road is nice, easy cruising. Okay, we made it back to the mud section. We'll see how well this does with these tires. I would say it's doing better than the Taga did with the OHDs. I mean, we didn't even have to winch through here, so that's a big difference. The ANK is a pretty good truck though, as far as capability goes. Alright, this time instead of going down to the lake bed, we're going to follow the road. The landslide is just up ahead. On the next episode, we're going to continue working on the tasks in this map, try to get them wrapped up and get into those end contracts soon. Appreciate everybody coming out. We'll see you on the next one. Thanks for watching.